All right, so yeah, we are officially live now. So we're with Mikey Taylor, pro skater, entrepreneur, and investor. So I just want to bring it back to when you kind of started with skating. You know, I have like an admiration with any professional athlete, and just making that transition from doing a sport at a professional level and going into entrepreneurship. It's a different play, different role. It's a huge transition. But even going before entrepreneurship, how did you get into like skating? Is this something that you had a complete passion for, or did you kind of have like, say, like a God-given gift and you just rolled with it?
No, I did not have a God-given gift. It started because like somebody that I thought was cool had a skateboard and I just wanted to fit in. So I got one also. And it just kind of was different than the other things I had gotten into. Like prior to skateboarding, I would be into biking or I played hockey or whatever it was. They were always short-lived. Or with skating, it was like it grabbed me and just never let go. So I started when I was 13, then got to 14, 15, 16 came around, and my parents wanted me to start working, and I didn't want to start working. So I had to figure out a way to, avoid that. And that's what introduced the idea of maybe I can get companies to give me free stuff to avoid working. And that was basically the beginning of it and eventually turning into a career. But no, it wasn't a God-given thing. I am the type that just had to work and work at it. It just wasn't willing to not be good, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, it never felt kind of like a job. It was just a complete passion. Some people might say, hey, you need to have a skill to do anything, not just sports, but like entrepreneurship. But if you just work on something like every day because you love it, you're naturally going to get better, right?
I mean, that's what I think. And just for context with skateboarding, I was out of our group of 10 people, I was the worst for the entire run. Like the majority of people in my group got sponsored. I was always the worst. But if you do something long enough, you become good at it. It's like anything, right? So I would skate seriously 5-6 hours a day. I did that for 24 years. I never missed a day of skating. So it was like, if you're willing to just push yourself, you'll get good at anything. That was my model to it.
When you first started skating, though, was it like extremely popular? Because I was listening to another podcast with Tony Hawk, and I think he was with Joe Rogan, and he was like, yeah, like when he was skating when he was like 14 in his teens, it wasn't a big thing. And the only reason why or how he turned pro was literally he went to a competition and there's a check mark, pro or not pro. And he literally checked off pro. And from that day on, he was an official pro skater. And that was because like skating wasn't this huge sport as it is kind of today. But when you first started, was it like a really hot thing to do, very trendy?
No, it was, I mean, it was bigger than when Tony Hawk skated. When he started, it was like really, really small. But when I started, it was small as well. It was not cool to be a skateboarder. Nobody liked us. There were like 4 people total in our school that did it. So it was, we were outcasts, man. We were considered whack for skateboarding back then. It didn't become trendy until like almost like mid 2000s, like 2004 or 5, it started picking up. But in the 90s, it was not cool at all.
That's pretty tough because, when you look at athletes now or people who are in high school, college, who want to be pro athletes, they've been having that dream since they were young, especially if they're playing like soccer, football, basketball. It's because there's a huge market for those sports. And as a pro skater, especially back like in the 80s, 90s, there was no real vision to become a pro skater. And at that point, you're just doing it for fun. And it's kind of cool how like one thing led to the other. It became mainstream and, you became a pro skater and then eventually an entrepreneur.
Yeah, well, I think the difference is like with normal sports like baseball, basketball, right? Like there was more than just playing your sport. Like if you were pro, you were famous, you were rich. It was like this like dream lifestyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
With skateboarding, there was no like real career in it. So it was like we just did it because we didn't want it to end. We didn't like have a vision of it being on superstar status because it wasn't. So there was like something that was actually cool about that because it kept it authentic. It was like, oh, we do this because we love it. We're not really chasing something other than skateboarding,
Yeah. I remember I was watching this movie. It's one of my favorite movies. It's called like, The Lords of Dogtown. Have you watched it?
Yeah.
Yeah, these kids, like they're legends now. Like Tony Alva and Casey Peralta, they just did it for fun. They kind of went skating in people's pools and they just had fun. They never had any intentions of going pro, but their image got so big, especially during competitions, that people went to them, brands went to them, and obviously things got very transactional. They started to make money, and it was through that their group kind of split. But
Yeah.
I always thought, like, hey, like, if you just do things for fun, not even think about like the money, I think things will come about a lot easier or a lot more efficiently. Because if you think of an entrepreneur nowadays, they kind of look at Instagram, social media in general, and like, hey, I want to be like this guy. And they kind of force themselves to be someone that they're not, or kind of force the situation, And I think that applies in not just in sports, but like in business. I think you need to be patient and put in that hard work and time to get to where you want to be.
I totally agree with you. The only thing I'm going to say to it, and it's not to challenge, but like when I was skateboarding, like growing up, I would emulate pro skateboarders. Like I would see pros and like try to like skate the way they did, try to wear clothes and like look like them. And I eventually what would happen is I ended up finding my own style.
Yeah.
And then becoming my own. I actually think that could happen in business as well. I think sometimes like you can use people as inspiration who have paved the way and go, you know what? I like how they're doing it. I'm going to try to kind of replicate that until I kind of find my own. I think that's okay. I just think you need to be careful of like, acting like something you're not, in the sense of don't just assume you've already proven it and you're like Grant Cardone, for a perfect example. Don't just be Grant Cardone. You're not Grant Cardone, but you can like follow some of the things he does and use that as inspiration. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, sure. I mean, I just believe, everyone has their own kind of style. Of course, when you're beginning on something, you need to have some inspiration. And when I think of skateboarding, I look at it as an art. And of course, a lot of artists copy other artists in terms of I guess techniques and stuff. But over time, you do develop your own style, and that's how you become unique. But if you just kind of replicate someone else's tricks, then why are they going to sign you? Exactly, right?
That's right. 100%.
So you're a pro for 17 years. At what point did you kind of like, was it official that you became pro skater?
I turned pro in 2001 or 2002. I was about 20. right around 2001.
Mm-hmm. And at that point, were you kind of like, okay, I made it, like going back to these pro athletes nowadays, they have these huge contracts, not only with the actual team, but with other sponsors. Like, hey, I'm going to like feed my family. I'm set for life. I'm happy. Like, did you kind of have that sensation, or is like, hey, I'm going to do this forever. I'm just happy where I am right now.
No, I actually never had that feeling my entire career. I never like looked back and went, I made it. I was always trying to like get to the next point. And I think that's because with skateboarding, we don't make enough to never have to do anything again. So, it's not like we hit this milestone and go, oh my gosh, I'm never working again. Everything's picked. My life is good. That doesn't happen for us. So there is this feeling of like, I'm living out my dream, but I'm also racing the clock on when it ends. And so I think because of that, I just never had that. I never kind of hit that milestone when I made it. I was always, how do I make it? 15 years later, still trying to figure it out.
Wait, but just to provide like context, because I'm so unfamiliar with like the skateboard world. How do you become pro? Like, do you kind of have to film? Like, I guess the best way I can really think of it is like, say you create a YouTube channel, social media, and you make all these films, and you kind of just market yourself, and then eventually someone will find you. Or is it through like competitions that you kind of, make a name for yourself?
No, the technical way to turn pro is a company starts selling product with your name on it. And it's usually your board company that decides when you go pro. So when I turned pro, my board company at the time was City Stars, and they put out a signature Mikey Taylor board. And that was the moment I turned pro. And then all my other sponsors, which were, clothing companies, shoe company, then all of a sudden they would create product with my name on it. So I'd have a signature shirt and signature pants, and then eventually I'd have a signature shoe. So it pretty much means that a company's going to sell your name.
Okay. And is there a kind of like a status quo? Because like I love soccer, and then when I look at soccer players, of course, if they don't score enough goals or they concede too many goals, that player is gonna, not going to be signed. Their contract is going to run out, and they're not going to get a new one. But for skateboarding, is there like a status quo? Like, hey, you need to be ranked top 500 to maintain that contract and work with us, or what?
No, it's not really actually. There's not like a contest ranking. It really comes down to if you have demand and your name can sell product. Like for
Okay.
a company, right? A company's going to pay you. And if they're going to pay you, they're going to want to see a return on their investment in you. That return is usually going to come in some type of sales, right?
Mhm.
So if they're giving you money and they're not seeing a multiple back off that, well, you then aren't desirable. And
Yeah.
then you essentially might go away. So it really is just as long as you can sell product, then in theory, a company will see a worth in you to promote you and pay you.
Hmm. So that moment that when you turn pro, did you really kind of like turned on another gear if you haven't already, kind of like really utilizing every social media platform out there? Because I know you have like YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and you have like tens of thousands of followers. But did you kind of start that ever since you were a pro skater, or even like way back before?
Yeah, so when I turned pro, there was no social media. I was pro
Yeah.
for 10 years before any platform started. So the only way that we could market ourselves were in magazines. So if a company of ours put out an ad, people would find us, or if there were videos that our sponsors would put out, and those were VHS tapes, and then eventually DVDs. And then it wasn't until, gosh, what, 2010, 2011, when like I started jumping on, I started like Facebook and then Twitter, and it was like, it was so new that most pro skateboarders didn't even think you were supposed to do that. Like, you're going to market yourself on social media. That's kind of whack. But it was a game changer for us. And then it introduced oh, pro skaters can now build their own following and ultimately sell their own product without the company or the magazine. So that was definitely a paradigm shift in our industry.
I feel like, if you had that back then, that process or that journey of becoming a pro skater would have been a lot more easy, a lot more
It would have
stream.
been it would have been so different. Like for when I got sponsored, I made like 40 VHS tapes of myself, and I looked through the magazine to look for what companies would include their address in the ad, and whoever had an address, I would just put it on the VHS tape and I sent it out, just crossing my fingers that somebody would watch it. It was like such a Hail Mary. But now, yeah, I mean, you can figure out who the CMO or team manager of any company is and direct message them. Hey, here's my tape. Send them a link. It's just different now, you know?
Hmm. So you kind of had to, find your way or hustle your way through and making those connections, networking with people to, establish a team around you or even become like that pro skater that you always wanted to be for anyone out
Mm-hmm.
there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right.
Hmm. And, with any athlete or professional actor, even, there comes a time where either you're not performing as well or you're not up to like the industry standard or you have an injury for whatever reason, unfortunately. And, that might be the turning point of like, hey, I'm not going to be able to sustain my lifestyle because, now the contract is done. I'm not making, say enough films. I'm not participating in these competitions. Um, did you kind of have like a moment where like, hey, I'm scared to death because you were sponsored by DC and Spitfire at one point. So when that happened, did you kind of turned on a gear and looked at the entrepreneurial route to make your income?
Um, yes, it just happened in kind of a different, it happened differently than what you explained. I was scared before I realized that my career was going away. I was scared when I was in my prime because I didn't know what life was going to look like after my career. And so I started planning for that. And in that preparation, uh, which was doing a lot of investing actually at that time. I then hit a point where I started looking at ways to invest in myself, which then led to creating companies. And I did that. Gosh, let's see. The first company I started was 2011. My career didn't end until 2017. So that was more to start building a vehicle that could help me once my career ended before my career ended. You know,
Mhm.
I still wanted to use my leverage when I was in my prime to build something, not wait until it fell apart. So that was where the entrepreneurial side started.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I feel like a lot of athletes. Like, there's this one documentary. It's called "Broke." You see these
I know.
athletes. Yeah, yeah, they make mad money. They make mad
Yeah.
money, and you would think that they'll have like a financial plan, at least long term, to set all that up. But instead, they kind
Yeah.
of like they live a lavish lifestyle and they end up being bankrupt, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So you kind of, in the midst of your prime, you were kind of investing and, making your money work for you at the same time, right?
Yes. Yes. And that was because I had guidance. I had really good guidance around me at a young age, and uh, they were the ones that helped at least put my attention on what I needed to do to put myself in a good position. So as far as investing went, that started right when I turned pro, and went the entire time. And then the entrepreneurial side, or at least me starting my own companies, happened later. But yeah, I mean, that was thankfully I had a good team to help me with that.
And so in terms of investing, I think this is like conserved, like as a lot of value to like a lot of athletes or people who are kind of making a name for themselves, making money. And instead of like living a lavish lifestyle, kind of set aside a percentage of their income to investing. Were you kind of aggressive, or like say 25% of your income down to investing, 10%? Like how did your portfolio kind of look like?
I was super aggressive on how much I was saving. And that's truthfully because I was a skater and didn't make that much money. So are you familiar with Dave Ramsey?
Yeah. I have his book.
So basically, my mentor had me on this Dave Ramsey approach, except I wasn't in debt. He kind of had me on this like live like you're broke. And in Dave Ramsey's point, it's so that you have extra money to pay off your debt. For me, it was so I had extra money to put towards opportunity. So I was living off 20% of my income, which was not that much at the time. And then kind of our strategy was, I'm going to start making more money, but maintain this lifestyle so that the margin or the amount of money I can put towards opportunity just increases. Because unfortunately, most people, as they start making more money, they start spending more money. So by making more money, it doesn't give them larger opportunity to invest. So that was kind of our plan. In the beginning, it was just trying to build up enough cash to put towards great opportunity. That's something that I didn't really realize was kind of scarce at times. Like, kind of we're told that there's always opportunity in front of us. Well, there's not always great opportunity. So we were pretty much waiting for great opportunity. And that happened in, a lot of real estate investing, specifically in storage units, and then on the lending side, and then multifamily. And then we started looking at ways for me to invest in myself, which was then startups that I was incorporated in or involved in.
Yeah, I feel like that discipline of, just saving money, living humbly, and, not spending all that money and, just having a good time. That's the really difficult part. And you need an extreme discipline to kind of maintain that in the long term,
The discipline is everything. Like I know people kind of get frustrated with the idea of they think investing is very complicated or you have to be really smart to do it. It's not true. Investing, only about 15 to 20% of it is actually skills. The other 80 or 85% is behavioral all day.
Yeah.
So if you can learn how to be disciplined with the behavioral side of spending, you're going to do really well. If you struggle with that, you're not going to do well. And you could be smart or not, it doesn't matter.
I feel like the simplest investment you can make, at least long term, not real estate, but if you open up a Roth IRA account, right, and you kind of save it for, if you don't open it or close it, say you don't take the money back when you're 65 years old, right? So you leave it there for 30, 40 years, and assuming that you get a 7% annual return, if you do the math, it kind of looks too good to be true. If you put like, say like $5,000 or $2,000 as your initial capital, and like I said, 6 to 8% annual return, you can potentially become a millionaire if you're really disciplined. And the numbers kind of seem like fake, but it's just math, and it's just
Okay.
that discipline to kind of, set aside a portion of your income and just put it back into your brokerage account, your RA account.
That's right. Have you seen Tony Robbins'
Money master.
explanation? Yeah, he has an
Yeah.
example of a Roth IRA and how you become a millionaire with only having to fund it for,
Yeah.
what did he do, 8 years or something like that?
Yeah. And it
It's
seems
really
too good to be true, but I guess everyone's kind of impatient. I mean, when I go on social media now, I'm not going to try to demonize like high frequency trading, day trading, swing trading. People are definitely making money off that, but that's the sexy thing, I think. It's
yeah,
sexy,
right.
but the long term thing isn't sexy. Maybe just saying that it's passive income, maybe, but it's not the cool thing. And entrepreneurship nowadays is about being cool, I think.
Honestly, whatever society tells you to do the opposite. Whether that's investing, whether that's building a business, whether that's relationships, that will be the best advice for anyone listening to this. Do exactly the opposite of what society tells us. And you just nailed on a perfect point. Society tells us that if we want it right now, we should have it, right? Everything's instant. I want, I have. That will destroy you as far as investing goes. Investing is done when done right over a long period of time. That's how you eliminate risk, right? The other thing is when you're building a business, it is not easy. It does not happen overnight. You usually are going to struggle to stay alive for the first 5 years, right? None of these things are done quick. All of it, it's why the principle of delayed gratification is so powerful, right? If you can say no now, you're going to experience more on the back end. But most people can't say no now, so they don't get to enjoy the benefit of something like a Roth IRA, or something like starting their own business, or something like investing in long-term real estate as opposed to flips. It's very counter, and I guess it doesn't seem right for us anymore because everything we see tells us now. But gosh, if you can move past now and look to the future, you're going to do really well.
Yeah, just thinking long term is definitely the best approach. But people might say, "Hey, I want to live my life as a 20-year-old in my mid-20s, like explore everything and leverage my youth." I mean, I guess it's preference, but in terms of like having a better future, it's better to invest and save for the long term. Now, when you were into entrepreneurship and investing, actually. Did a lot of people tell you like, yo, like, what are you doing? This is not your lane. Like, you're a skateboarder. Like, this is not you. Did you get a lot of like bad mouth kind of on that topic?
Well, I didn't get, well, okay. Yes and no. When I was skating, nobody really said anything because I didn't tell anybody what I was doing. Nobody knew that I was investing. It was all passively. When we started St. Archer, which was the brewery that we started, there were a lot of people that told us we were crazy and that we shouldn't do it. Of course, I didn't get the most blowback until I started talking about this stuff on social media. And that was years later. That was 4 years after we sold St. Archer. That was 4 years after my career ended. It was like, that's when I got the blowback. But I think there's a few things at play. It's like, one, people followed me because I was a skateboarder. And the fact that I'm not skateboarding anymore, for those who follow me and want to see that and don't see anymore, that's kind of a bummer. I think it's similar to if we were following like Michael Jordan, and then Michael Jordan stopped playing basketball, and maybe he had social media back then. You're like, Michael, I just want to see you shoot threes and dunk. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's a natural challenge to it. The other one is, people were confused about why I was talking about money. And I was talking about money more than I was talking about entrepreneurship. So people, I think, were like, why are you talking about money? What do you know about money? That's just part of change. It's like, I think people had to adjust to see the new thing I was doing that was completely different than my last career,
Oh yeah, I totally agree. And it takes a lot of time and effort to build a name for yourself, and it's definitely the best opportunity to leverage your own personal brand, not only through making businesses, but establishing connections and making a network with people. So how did you like kind of start St. Archer? I know it was acquired by another what is it, Budweiser or
by Miller Coors?
Miller Coors, yeah. So it was acquired by them. That reminds me of like George Clooney. Like he's an actor, but he made what I think it was a cognac, or no, a vodka.
No, it was a tequila, right?
Yeah.
I'm blanking on the name. I have a bottle of it.
Basically, yeah. I mean, he made a bottle of tequila with his partner, and it sold, I think, for like $1 billion, and his net worth is now $400 million. And a lot of these actors, athletes, like they become rich through their skill, but that next level is like, okay, leveraging their name and creating bigger and better opportunities for themselves. And that's kind of what you did with like alongside with George Clooney, creating your own beverage and having it sold.
That's exactly right. I mean, that was what we envisioned, like the perfect play being, where we're athletes and we have this audience, and then we could create a company and use our leverage or influence to sell product. And this was early. This was 2012. So it was before like the influencer marketing thing hit.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were like, dude, maybe this will work. Maybe people will buy our product because they like us. Who knows? And it totally worked. It was insane. And it was, what was cool about it is I think it gave us a realistic idea of how valuable it is to have a following. Like before St. Archer, we were just like, oh yeah, like a few 100,000 people follow us. Like, but what does that mean? And all we wanted them to do was watch the tricks we were doing. You know, we didn't really monetize it at all. So St. Archer was like the first time where we were like, holy shit, we just built a whole brand because of an Instagram following. This is insane. And then we sold it for, I mean, we all made more with St. Archer than we did our entire skate career. Just like George Clooney, it was like out of control. So it was like the crazy thing was seeing that there is true value in having an audience.
Yeah. Like another prime example is Jay-Z with Rockerwear. You know,
That's
a
right.
lot of brands came to him like, hey, wear my shirt, wear my clothing, and they were making money. However, once they created their own brand of Rockerwear and they sold it, you know, that they made crazy amount of money because they leveraged their name, you know?
That's right. That's
And
right. That's right.
I think it's just important for like, if you have a name for yourself, if you're huge, if you have a large following, yes, you can accept like sponsorships and deals, but I think you have more opportunities leveraging your name and creating something for yourself, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I think it goes back to the first point we we're talking about. It's like just doing a deal with somebody is easier, right? It's more short term. Building a brand, you're sacrificing income in a sense because you're risking it to build something, but the payout on the back end is it can be substantially bigger, right? So I think that's one thing. And then two, I think a lot of people who are like just influencers, maybe they're not entrepreneurial or maybe they're an athlete but don't understand business. You don't have to be the one that runs the business. You can partner with somebody or with people that understand business, and your component is bringing an audience to them. Like that's a way for you to participate in the equity instead of just the paycheck that has the potential of being larger than what they're offering you in the beginning. So I think just like think as if you're an entrepreneur. You don't necessarily have to be one.
Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if you know a lot about beer, but is that kind of what you did? You kind of established your connections, found a partner to make St. Archer.
That's what we originally thought we were going to do. When we had the idea, none of us knew anything about beer. We knew about marketing and skateboarding.
Yeah.
And so we were going to other breweries to see if they would create our beer and distribute it. And all we would do was be the marketing. And after about a year of going from brewery to brewery, we realized that there just wasn't any money in it really. Like no matter what, we would have to start our own brewery, whether it was right now or 3 years from now. So we just decided to start it. And so what that meant was we had to build a team of brewers and really people from the industry to cover us in the areas that that wasn't our skill set.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't outsource it. We just we brought the team in.
Yeah. I think like, at least nowadays, you know, you can obviously white label almost or private label almost anything, right? All you got to do is marketing.
That's right.
I don't know, like when you first started, did you kind of have to, you know, put your input into like the taste of the beer and all that type of fun stuff?
Everything, dude. Yeah, we did not white label it. We had to create it from scratch. So it was like beer tastings and it was the whole nine, dude. It was, we really had to build something.
Yeah, I think you probably felt like a lot more satisfied, you know, because you built like your baby, you're up, and then it was eventually acquired.
It was really cool. Even like acquiring the building. Like when we got the building, we had a little skate session in there before we built any of the equipment out. Like it was just like the whole thing was special.
Damn. So you actually had like your own little like factory making everything, the bottles, the beverage, the labels itself.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Well, we didn't at our brewery, we made the beer. The bottles came to us. So we had to fill the bottle, put our branding on it. The boxes were sent to us, but yeah, it was a production brewery.
And how do you market it? I mean, if you went skating, did you always have, I don't know, like a can by the side, or do you have like a shirt? What strategy did you use to kind of like market St. Archer?
So yeah, we would all wear shirts, but a lot of the stuff we did was through Instagram. We would create these mini documentaries on athletes. We would constantly promoting videos that we were making that didn't have that much to do with the beer. It was more about the lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And then we would do these nights where all the pro skateboarders or surfers would pour beer. So it'd be like beer night. We'd all be the bartenders and everybody would come see us. We'd pour their beer, talk with them. And that ended up being a huge marketing play.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'd have people around the door to come in. It was crazy.
Wait, but how tough is it to market like alcohol, especially through social media?
Well, it's hard if you're paying for it, but I mean, we were just organically promoting it on our channel.
I know, I'm saying, I thought like with like alcohol in general, there's a lot more barriers to like say promoting a candy bar, for example, right?
There's more barriers, but there was no barrier as far as us posting videos that we were making of the brand.
Mm-hmm. And how long did it take from, from the idea to the acquisition of St. Archer? Or sorry, the buy, yeah.
It took us from the idea, about a year and a half to opening doors. And then we opened doors in about April, May of 2012. And then we sold right around November of 2015. So it's quick. I mean, it was quicker than we thought. We were expecting to have this thing for over a decade.
And like, how did the idea come about? Were you just like chilling one day with your buddy, your partner? Like, hey, would it be cool to kind of create our own beverage company and, maybe make a cool exit?
No, we didn't know that much to know about an exit back then. We were film. So one of my partners was a filmmaker.
Okay.
He made surf films. And he had made this film where he took a pro surfer from San Diego and they took the train all the way up to San Francisco. They'd stop in all these cities to link up with other pros and film a surf session. And so he wanted to do that with me, except for skateboarding. Mm-hmm. So we drove down to San Diego to film the beginning of it. And then we were going to take the train up to San Francisco and meet all these pros along the way. And the first night of filming, I got a call from a friend of mine who was going to start a sunglass company. His name was Mike Mo. And he was like, hey, dude, I'm going to start a sunglass company. Do you want to be a part of it? And I was like, I don't know. Let me think about it. So I hung up the phone, and Josh, who was my partner and the filmmaker, I just kind of told him, I was like, hey, dude, I got a call about sunglasses. What do you think about this? And he was like, I mean, it's cool, but like sunglasses, like everybody does sunglasses in our industry. Like it'd be sick to do something new. And that conversation was at 7 p.m. We talked about new ideas till about 11:30, and we were sharing a hotel room. And we ended up just going, hey, dude, let's talk about this tomorrow. So I turn off the light, and then 2 seconds later, he goes, like, what about beer? Like, how sick would it be to do like a beer in our world? Like, that's never been done. And I click on the light. I'm like, are you kidding me? What do you mean? And so we talked about beer for the next hour. We woke up in the morning. We completely abandoned the film. We drove home. And as we were driving home, Josh says, hey, you should help your friend P-Rod. Like P-Rod's one of the biggest skateboarders of all time. And he owned a company, Primitive. He was like, call P-Rod. He might want to be an investor. So we met P-Rod in Agora on our way home and pitched him the idea we had from the night before. And then that was the beginning of us three setting out to figure out what it meant to create this brewery. That's where the idea came.
And just like that, you guys started.
And just like that, the idea was formed. Okay. It took us a long time until we got to a point where we realized we had to raise money. And we didn't even know what that meant. And once we basically were counseled on what we had to do, we realized how important it was to show the investor how they were going to make their money back. Mm-hmm. And so an exit was, we were introduced to the idea of you need to build something to sell it. And that's what people are going to want to hear. What's your exit plan, or what's your exit strategy? So when the idea came up, we didn't know any of this.
Mm-hmm. I feel a lot of people, they have like their friends and family, they have a dope idea and they get really hyped up, and then the next day they don't take any action, or the next week they just forget about it. Right. But what was it like? Did you kind of have like really motivated like friends and partners to really drive this idea into being something that's like realized, of just one thing, having an idea, a cool idea, and then another thing actually proceeding and taking the action?
So this is what I'm really thankful for, is my two partners, which were Josh Landon and Paul Rodriguez. All three of us are the type that when we focus on doing something, we are doing it. We will stop at nothing. And so us three together with this obsession of we're doing this. Yeah, we're doing this. There was no backing out for us. It was like, we were gonna see it through. And then once we got to the point of raising money, then it's a whole different type of pressure. Like when you're responsible for people's money, there's no, I don't want to do this anymore. You know what I'm saying? It's we are making this happen no matter what.
So I'm assuming that you'd have to raise like a decent amount of capital, but that didn't really, I mean, it probably stunned you, but it didn't like dismotivate you to not proceed, right?
No, no. I mean, we had to raise $2.5 million, which was, I mean, we weren't sure how we were going to raise that, but you know, you have two people who came from skateboarding, and one incredibly powerful thing about skateboarding is it gives you a lot of confidence in achieving, because the process in which you go through to learn how to skateboard is so devastating and so difficult that to master it, you feel like you could accomplish anything as long as you're willing to go to war. And so that mixed with Josh, who is incredibly confident, who is a leader, who drives forward, it was the perfect storm to just like, what do we need to raise? Okay, well, I don't know how we're going to do it, but let's figure it out. How do we raise $2.5 million? And then it was just driving.
Yeah, I just feel like, not, of course, you're not going to know everything initially. And maybe if you do know everything initially, it might be extremely, extremely overwhelming. But because like you're so new to it, maybe like naive about the fact that like not knowing everything, you kind of add a different dimension to doing business, you know? So I think like everyone's like who's listening, it's so important to add your own sort of like perspective on things, and don't take it just for granted. It's like do things, take baby steps one at a time, and don't overthink it, because if you do, you might be too overwhelmed in the end.
So there's two things I'm going to add to that. It's really important. One, if you have an idea, do a business plan. Do it every time. I know a lot of times it feels like a waste of time. It will do so much for you because it forces you to think about all these elements to the actual plan, right? So it helps you fine tune your idea. Once you get to the point of pitching your idea, you're going to be, people don't want to feel like you just have an idea and you've done zero due diligence. There's no trust that you're actually going to be able to pull it. So even if you're going out to raise money or not, a business plan is going to help you work through it. So it's incredibly important. The other thing though, and this is the big one, it never goes according to plan, ever. So you don't want to get stuck in this, I don't know everything, because truthfully, you're not going to know everything. A lot of stuff's going to happen that you're going to have to work out. But you do need to go through the actual plan and make sure you have all your T's crossed and your I's dotted or whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm. So you think it's kind of imperative to like, once you start a business, create a business plan, but even though it's most likely not going to go as planned, it still gives you a mindset of how to kind of approach things, you know, right? And then
it helps you put together the plan, right? It's like in a business plan, you have your idea and you need to walk through what it looks like from idea to launch to ultimate success, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you're missing any of those components, it's going to be obvious. Okay, well, pick a company. Like, let's say you want to do a clothing company, right? You can't just say, oh, I have this idea to do this clothing company and I'm going to be successful because it's a new idea, right? You still have to go through, how much does my clothes cost? Who's going to distribute it? Who's going to buy it? All those elements go into a business plan, which I think everyone should do before they start a business.
Mm-hmm. And during that time was like e-commerce. E-commerce was still pretty big. I mean, right now it's like everyone knows about it, but it wasn't like the trendy thing, or I guess the go-to way to do business, right?
No, it wasn't. It was just kind of starting to pop off. We were selling beer though, which I'm not even sure if you could ship beer then, or I'm not even sure if you can do that now. We were talking about doing it with our apparel, but our apparel was a smaller component of our business. The production and distribution of beer was our focus, and e-com just wasn't there for it at the time.
Mm-hmm. So that must have been like another challenge. Like, you know, of course you can sell the beer locally, but you have to distribute it to, you know, other liquor stores across the country, and, you know, find ways to do that. I mean, that sounds like a logistical nightmare itself, but.
Yep. That's right.
But how important is it? So you had two other partners. You do have like distinct kind of skill sets, because if you all have the same skill sets, I feel like if you have three cooks in the kitchen, things are not going to come out right. But if you have different skill sets, then you can still work together and, you know, achieve the goals that you guys want to do.
Yes, it's why building a team is so important and so challenging, because a lot of times we want to surround ourselves with people who make us feel good. but that doesn't mean that somebody's coming in that has a unique skill set that complements your weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
So it's incredibly important. Don't and it's challenging as well. It's hard to find good people, and it's hard to have the clarity to know what you're good at, what you're bad at, and bring somebody in that's going to shine in an area where you're not going to, right? It's an ego challenge for sure. So but it's a make or break to a business. So you can't create a
Yeah.
business without a team. And if you don't have a team that is basically everybody is doing the thing that they're meant to be doing, it's never going to be anything worth anything really.
Yeah, because I don't think it's a good idea just to create a business with your friend just because they're
No.
your friend or your cousin. You kind of have to find someone who I guess kind of knows your stuff and has an idea, has different traits.
Yeah.
Yeah, people say it's create businesses for fun, but I think finding that partner or a team is arguably, I guess, the most important step in starting anything.
100%. And as fun as it sounds to do business with your friends, 9 times out of 10, it will destroy your friendship. And it's even harder to do business with family. So just
Oh
keep
yeah.
that in mind. Those are 2 areas that are hard.
Yeah, money and family, those are not like the best
No,
combinations at all. It can really split relationships.
that's right. That's right. That's right.
So was that kind of like your first brand that you worked with? Because I know you have other brands. You have Sovereign, the skateboarding company, and you have Commune Capital. So was that like your first taste of entrepreneurship?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was it. That was that was pretty much the first. And it was, it was so large in a sense that, well, let me say this. Most companies you start, you don't have to raise money for.
Okay.
So the first one we did, we had to raise money for, and we got to an exit. So we got to experience the full circle of how it should work to start a company.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one, I'm thankful we had the outcome we had, but two, there was so much stuff that we learned from the get-go that if we wouldn't have raised money, we wouldn't have learned what we did.
Mm-hmm. And
When
then,
you're responsible for other people's money, you have to make different decisions, right? It's like
Mhm.
you're trying to do what's best for the business, but you always have in mind what's best for the investor and not wanting to lose their money. So there's an added element to it that I'm glad we went through then, because now what I do with Commune is all about raising money. So a lot of that experience came from the beginning.
Mhm. I don't know if this happened in your case, but I guess when you're using investors' money, you don't have like full autonomy of the whole situation. You know, maybe like in huge like tech startups, for example, when they have a board of directors and say you're the owner, you came up with the idea. Of course, like you don't have the entire leverage because now you have a board of directors, you have investors, and if you have an idea, yes, you can spit it out, but it has to be something that's beneficial or something that you think that would make the investors happy and make them money, most importantly, right?
Yes, and I think there's different levels of it. It's like if you're, you know, raising $1 million and you're not doing that with like big VC funds, you're going to have different type of controls in place, right? You can create a board and kind of manufacture it in a way where you know your voice is going to be heard, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
when you start dealing with big dollars and all these different series rounds, you're more at risk of people taking control of your company. And
Mhm.
we didn't, our company wasn't that. We didn't have big companies or funds investing in us.
Yeah. I feel like when you kind of make a huge, like when you have a big win, when you create a business and it comes out very, very successful, you want to move on to the bigger thing. You know what I mean? Like for, I guess like the best analogy is like, say you're making a decent amount of money and you go to the casino and the max that you'll ever spend is like a couple $100 a night that you're willing to gamble, right? But say your net worth is still crazy high in the millions, you're not going to want to bet $100 here and there. That's like chump change to you, right? You want to bet in the tens of thousands of dollars per hand, maybe, right? I feel like for a business, once you kind of make that huge exit, you want to aim for something a lot bigger. Was that kind of your ambition of like, hey, let's create a bigger brand. Let's kind of replicate this, if not make it even better. And yeah.
Yes and no. From a, I guess like to your financial analogy or the gambling analogy, uh, you should always, I think, allocate the same percentage of your portfolio to go towards something like a new startup. So even though your dollars have gotten bigger, your percentage stays the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think maintaining your discipline is important. But when you build a company, there's so much more at the end as opposed to the beginning. So you have a whole new type of skill set and view to make the next thing potentially larger than where you're sitting here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yes, of course. Yeah, you want to do the next thing bigger than the next thing. You always want to be, improving or growing, for sure. But I don't know if that means taking on more risk to achieve that bigger company. I think it actually can be done with less risk.
So did you kind of partake in more investments instead of kind of creating a new brand entirely? I mean, was Sovereign, did you create Sovereign after?
Sovereign was after, and Sovereign's a small company, so we didn't need to raise money. We have 4 employees. Sovereign is more of a passion project. Sovereign was a way for me to have a company inside of skateboarding that keep me connected to skateboarding beyond me actually being a pro skateboarder. That was the purpose of Sovereign.
Okay. No, yeah, I think it's going to be extremely difficult to kind of cut your passion completely. Of course, you can skate here and there, but I know you're a very busy guy. But if you kind of create a business where people kind of depend on you with your 4 employees, it kind of forces you to kind of.
It keeps you plugged in on what's happening, right? It's like skateboards and clothes. You need to be on trend. So it's like, I know what's going on because I have people that are creating product that needs to sell in that environment. So there's that. And then we sponsor people. So it's like, I get to have relationships with the new kids and see what's going on, where if I didn't have Sovereign, I'd be totally out of touch.
What do you think, how do you think like skateboarding is going to be like what do you think are the next steps for skateboarding to be like the potential, like the next NFL of the United States? Like, why is it like, so I'm not going to say small, but it should be bigger than what it is, at least today. Like, what do you think is that next step, or what makes it stay there and not kind of accelerate to the next level?
Well, part of me doesn't think it's going to move to the next level, truthfully. I think it's going to be as big as it is now. I don't know if it's going to be bigger. And the reason I say that is like, because it's not competitive the way football is, it's hard for people that don't skateboard to get into it. Where other sports, you don't have to be a pro basketball player to get into basketball. You could have never played basketball your whole life and get into watching it. That's not really the case with skateboarding. And then it's so technical that all the tricks look the same to somebody who doesn't skate. So it takes the mass appeal away, I think. And that is what we would need for this thing to go, to the next level. That's what I think.
Yeah.
It's kind of like surfing, right? It's like surfing had a competitive element to it, which is the WSL, but surfing never really broke through to mainstream sports. And now it's even becoming smaller.
Yeah. I mean, to kind of add to what you're saying, I feel like the most simplest, ideas or projects, or sorry, not like sports, are the most popular. If you look at soccer, all you need is a soccer ball, and you need 4 objects to make the goal post, right? And you can literally play on any surface. And I guess that's why maybe soccer, in a way, is the most popular sport in the world. But then again, like, even if skating isn't a fad or like a huge thing right now, it makes it, I guess, the community a lot stronger.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
Small, right?
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah.
So with Sovereign, it's kind of like, you're not really thinking about creating a huge brand. It's more like, I love skating. I want to stick to it and stick with the community.
With Sovereign, I don't want to lose, from a business standpoint, don't want to lose money. I want it to just be able to sustain itself, makes money, great. And I wanted to do cool things for the skate community. That is the purpose, and as I would be incredibly happy if that's what we ended up accomplishing. But no, my desire with it is not to grow it to be the biggest skateboard company the world's ever seen.
Wait, going back to St. Archer, once you were bought out, did you kind of have to stay like another year and work and kind of like still market the brand, or was it just, okay, one and done thing, once it's done, once you got sold?
Some people had to, some people didn't. Okay. From an ambassador standpoint, most of the ambassadors stayed on for the first year. Josh stayed on for, gosh, probably about 2 years. There are a handful of people from our kind of the upper got VPs and COOs that stayed on for a few years after, but now I don't think there's really anybody left. I don't think from the original group.
Yeah, because that's usually what I hear from like at least like startups. Once you kind of
Well, yeah,
sell,
when you sell a company, it's like all the people that make the company what it is, the buyer doesn't want you to go away,
yeah,
right? They want a moment to figure out what's going on and ultimately retain you as long as possible, because a lot of times you're the reason why the brand is successful.
yeah. And like
You
looking
know,
back, like when you look at their like marketing strategy or how they're moving their brand forward, do you kind of have like a feeling of the nostalgia or moments where you cringe and like, hey, like maybe I could have done this differently, or I kind of missed doing that.
it's hard selling a brand. It really is. So when you sell a brand and then you give it to somebody and it's now theirs and you see them do things that's different than your vision, yeah, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy.
Um, but moving forward, do you kind of have other projects that you're working on right now? What's kind of like your next goal, ambition that you're kind of trying to achieve?
Um, well, right now it's a company we started about 3 years ago called Commune Capital, and that's where all my time goes now. Any moment that I'm not with the kids or my wife is building Commune. So Commune is a real estate company. So we have a real estate fund that people invest into, and then we take their capital and go buy assets either in multifamily, or we're looking at a lot of storage unit deals now, uh, to reach a targeted return for them so that we can all achieve financial freedom through basically passive income.
Hmm. And the skills that you've learned running St. Archer, finding partners, finding that network, you kind of, brought those skill sets back plus more to kind of establish commune.
Uh, I would say the two things that crossed over, one was St. Archer. We were able to create something that gave the product more value than the product itself.
Hmm.
So what I mean by that is, because of everything we were doing on the marketing and experience, when people grabbed a St. Archer and drank it, they felt something more than just drinking a beer for what it was. And there's value in that, right? I think I'm trying to accomplish the same thing with what we're building with Commune. I want to make real estate investing and the assets we're buying more valuable than just the asset itself, based on the way that I think myself and some people from our industry knows how to market brands. For example, look at Nike and Adidas, right? They are the same shoe. If you look at like any skateboard company, all the boards are the same board. But companies get good at making the person or the consumer feel like this, like Girl Skateboards is better than Death Wish, or that Nike is better than Adidas. They're all the same, right? So how do you make somebody feel like one's better than the other? It's all about storytelling and
Hmm.
experience, and there's so much more than the product. And so that's one element to Commune that I'm really trying to use to, I guess, separate ourselves from the other funds. And then I think the other thing is uh, raising money. It's like raising money and building a network. And if we wouldn't have gone through that with St. Archer, I wouldn't have felt as confident to do it with Commune.
Hmm. Is it fair to say that now your second passion is, branding and marketing? Because, you worked with St. Archer, you increased the brand awareness for that. Same thing with what you're doing right now with Commune. Of course, your own personal brand. You have, like I said, a lot of like, social media platforms with tens of thousands of followers. And of course, you're on many podcasts. So is that like another, I guess, passion that you have for marketing and branding?
Uh, no, actually, it's
No?
weird. I like marketing and branding. I totally do. It is not my skill set though. Like with all the brands that we've done, I have to bring in a creative team. I think I have good taste. I have an eye for it. I am
Okay.
not somebody who can create it though. Um, but no, it's actually not my passion. My passion is I enjoy people, truthfully. Like I
Hmm.
think my skill set and something that kind of is a God-given talent of mine is working with other people. I'm really good at uh, I'm really good at working with people when they're struggling. I'm really good at bringing people together. I'm really good at pushing people and motivating people. And and what's kind of been my kind of strategic advantage in commune is I've had the ability to bring a team together that would never come together. It's like our team of founders are financial advisors, real estate developers, skaters. It's a world that shouldn't combine. And I think that gift that I've been given to work with people and then push a vision or push the people to create the vision through challenging times is more my skill set and actually what I enjoy. Marketing is just a necessity to business, and I think I have a good eye in it only because I have the vision, and the vision needs to be seen by something visually, and that's where marketing comes in.
Yeah.
You know,
I feel like maybe because you've been skating all your life and you probably had like crews along the way, really tight knit crews, and of course you build like really strong bonds. And there's a lot of things that you can take away or that you took away from skating all your life into business, right?
yeah, that's right.
There's a lot of
100%.
like similarities that you can kind of just bring in because not only the competitive drive or not only just like marketing, because of course in skating it's all about marketing yourself as the best skateboarder that you can be, having your own tricks, your own style. So I guess a lot of those things kind of match with like skating and entrepreneurship. Do you think like have a lot of skateboarders or any other athletes hit you up for like advice? Because if I'm a skater or like an ex skater, an ex athlete, and I see someone that was in the same position as me, making all these brands and businesses, I would be like, hey, I want to join in on this too. Do you get like a lot of like DMs and like a lot of like inquiries or like for help?
Yeah, I do. I get DMs or text messages or whatever. And that's actually my favorite part about what I'm doing now. It's like when other pros, and it's happening outside of skateboarding now. I get football players that hit me up, golfers. I mean, every industry, which is really cool. Just like, hey, what can I do to help put myself in a better position? I think that's the best part for sure.
Yeah, man, it's definitely a skill. I mean, people like from the outside looking in, like I'm not a celebrity at all, but from the outside looking in, my people might say, hey, this guy has a huge name. It should be easy for him to make money, make a brand, put a name on it, advertise it. But it's clearly not because like you said, there's a lot of time and dedication and sacrifice with the investments and, and stuff like that. And that's a skill set in of itself, right? Of course you have you can leverage your name, but there's more to that. And I feel like a lot of these athletes, they need that information
That's right.
to like, I guess, to grow their own ambitions and businesses.
That's right. And remember, most people are focused on what their actual career is, right? Like with athletes, man, they're focused on what they're doing, right? If it's skateboarding, they're like this. They're not thinking about all this other stuff, right? Like, so you got to remember, like, a lot of times that's not even what their calling is. So you almost have to somehow educate them and then show them that there's people that can help or really I think the best way to look at it is everyone has this idea that they have to be active, right? Use investing for an example. It's like everyone thinks that they have to be the investor. That's not true. Passively means you are passively investing. You are giving your money to somebody and that person is going to give you a return for you giving them their money, right? So I think if done right, you can focus on your career, which makes you your money. You can get your money to work, which is passive income. And then if you can educate yourself along the way, that's going to put you in a phenomenal position once you are done focusing on the task at hand, which is dependent on what you're doing.
Yeah, and that makes sense because if you're an athlete and you're focused on your craft, maybe making a brand from scratch it might be too time consuming and you're not going to be able to concentrate on your sport. But
right.
like you said, if you do long-term investing where, give people your money in return, for more money later with interest, then that's more passive. And then you don't have to think about that. You let the money roll in. And then once you retire, then you can kind of maybe create your own brands if you really want to, right?
That's right. 100%.
Awesome. So yeah, Mikey Taylor, I really appreciate you having you on the podcast. I don't want to take too much of your time. So if people, want to like check you out, find your brand Sovereign, where can they check that out?
if you can get, if you're on Instagram, just my name's Mikey Taylor. You get to me there, you can get me anywhere. I have a number on my Instagram. You can text me, find my TikTok or Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, whatever. But Instagram's, I think, the hub right now.
Awesome. Got that. And for your text messaging, is it like your actual number, or is it like the community kind of app that you kind of
community app? Yep.
Right, cool.
Yeah. So on my community app, I send a text out every Monday, more motivational to set the week off. And then I respond to as many people as I possibly can throughout the week.
Dope. All right, Mike, I really do appreciate it, bro. And I'll definitely notify you once the podcast is uploaded.
Awesome. All right, big dog. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
All right. I'll talk soon.